Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. About a month ago, one Saturday morning, I made some postpartum meals for my daughter's family. I didn't film it, but I made taco meat, sloppy joes, and meatballs. And it was a blessing to her family and our family to have those meals already in the freezer. And they just took minutes to defrost and reheat in the microwave. So I decided on this day that I wanted to make some more meatballs to put in the freezer for freezer meals. And you can see that I'm opening 3 of the large packages of ground beef. I think they're between 2.5 and 3 pounds. The one package I showed, I had gotten on sale on a manager's special for $7. And so all you really need to do is make up your favorite meatloaf recipe and make it into meatballs. I'm sprinkling some onion powder and some garlic powder and salt and pepper over the meat. One package of meat was leaner than the other 2. And so I thought that mixing all 3 of these together would give the meatballs a lot of moisture and flavor. I had these breadcrumbs in the freezer that I wanted to use up. I had made a homemade shake and bake type coating mix for meat and didn't really care for it all that well. It has some seasonings in it, some garlic and onion powder and salt and pepper and paprika, but it worked out great to use it this way for meatloaf and meatballs. Just adding some pepper here and then a couple of shakes of Worcestershire sauce. I had a half of an onion in the refrigerator that needed to be used, so I chopped that up and minced that finely. I also had another whole onion on the counter that I chopped up because that was a lot of meat and it needed a lot of flavoring. Onions will also add a lot of moisture to your meatloaf or meatballs, so they're a good addition. If you wanted to shred up some raw carrots or raw zucchini and add it to the meat mixture, that would be good as well. Now these meatballs can be used as a hero or sub sandwich with red sauce, grilled onions and peppers, or a red sauce over pasta, or with a sweet and sour sauce served over rice. So I want to do this fairly quickly, and so I am just going to partially cook the onions. Here I am putting them in a dish, and I'm going to partially cook them in the microwave. Usually when I do that, I drizzle some olive oil on the top of them. I didn't this time. I don't know why. It didn't really need it. But so I cooked those for a minute to a minute and a half in the microwave because it was a large amount, and that softened them up just perfectly. Here I am drizzling some olive oil over the top just for some added flavor. I got a baking sheet out and lined it with a piece of parchment paper, and that's what I'll bake my meatballs on. I'm going to spray the parchment paper with some nonstick cooking spray. Probably didn't need to do this. There was enough grease in the meat mixture that they didn't stick. And I'm adding the onions. They're very hot, so I have to let them cool for a little while before I can mix them in because I'm going to use my hands. I watched an episode of Ina Garten, the cooking show, the Barefoot Contessa, and she was making meatballs, and she said that she added water to her meat mixture instead of any other kind of liquid. And I couldn't remember if the water was supposed to be ice cold or not. I just used room temperature water, and it seemed to work out really well. She said that she had learned that trick from the owner of the restaurant Rayo's, And some of you may recognize Rao's as the marinara sauce that you can buy in the stores now. And it's a famous restaurant in New York City, and that's where she learned how to do that. And I think it worked out well. I'll do it from now on. And don't ask me how much water I used for 9 pounds of meat, because I don't know. I didn't keep track, but I just kept on adding as I went, and until the mixture just felt right to me. And remember, I have those onions in here also, and they are partially cooked, but they will still give off a little bit of their liquid as they cook, as the meatballs cook. I don't use egg in my meatballs or meatloaf, and they work out just fine that way without the egg. But you are certainly welcome to add a few eggs to this meat mixture if you'd like to. I had so many pounds of meat here that it took a while to get it mixed well together, but I think it was good enough. So now I am just making the meatballs. I don't know if they're quite the size of golf balls or if they're more the size of walnuts. So I am just rolling those out and putting them on the parchment paper. I have my oven preheating to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. I ended up getting 2 baking sheets full of meatballs. There were about 46 meatballs on each pan. So that gives me about, pretty close to 100 meatballs, about 92. And I decided with the last bit of meat that I was just going to make that up into loaf form and freeze it that way as a meatloaf. And I will put it in my freezer and then pull it out some night when I don't know what to make for dinner and bake it off. And we'll have a meatloaf with maybe some mashed potatoes. And so I am just wrapping that up in parchment paper and putting it into a Ziploc bag, and I'll put it in my freezer for the future. So here we have 1 pan of meatballs coming out of the oven and 1 going into the oven. They baked for about 30 minutes. You'll have to see how your oven works with this. I think I would set the timer at first to 20 minutes and then check them, and then set it for another 10 minutes and see what happens. I tasted one to see what it tasted like, and that was one tasty meatball. When they came out of the oven, I used a thermometer to make sure that they were done inside. And after they cooled, here I am just bagging them up. I got 3 bags of meatballs plus this Tupperware container I am filling for dinner the next day with my daughter and her husband. So 3 bags of meatballs to go in the freezer that will probably give us 6 meals, plus the meal that we had the next day, plus the meatloaf. So that's not too bad. The next day I made a gravy to go on top of the heated meatballs. I had some leftover mushrooms left from pizza on the Friday before, and so I just made a mushroom gravy and we put that on our meatballs. I had some leftover spaghetti sauce if anybody would rather put that on their meatballs instead. But I think everybody liked the mushroom gravy. I wasn't sure they would, but everybody did. I made the mushroom sauce by frying the chopped mushrooms in a pan with some olive oil. Then adding a couple of tablespoons of flour to the olive oil to make a roux. Then I added some beef broth and whisked it really well, and adding onion powder and garlic powder and salt and pepper to taste. When that mixture thickened, I then added a little bit of milk, or you could add cream if you'd prefer to make it a little creamier and more like a mushroom soup. I served the meatballs over buttered noodles with green beans and the mushroom sauce on top. They were delicious, and it was a very satisfying meal. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.